Hey, y'all. Welcome to your show.
Don't be a victim.
I'm Lee Turner Jr. of Tango Firearms Training.
And I'm Buddy Myers of Tall Guns.
Well, welcome back for another week. Looks like we got definitely a lot we could talk about with everything that's going on.
You know, that's a great point, Lee. I think, we ought to have, we talked about how to prepare yourself in case of, natural disasters or fires in your home the last 2 weeks. But, I think it's time we have a little bit of a discussion about paying attention to this rising crime that's going on in our cities. And it's spreading to the urban or to the rural environments too.
Yeah. The crime wave is as bad as you think. And that's one thing, I'm not a fan of the fake news, but it's as bad as they're reporting. And it's probably even worse, really, if you think about it, especially what's going on in these major cities, and yes, a lot of them are the blue states that's happening more often in is because of their leaders. Their leaders are not taking control of the situation. And, in my gut feeling, they're wanting it to go on. They're allowing it to happen. And I don't understand their reasoning for allowing it to happen.
Yeah, I think it's important, too, when we talk about leaders, to couch leaders. And leaders, at least in my perception, whether you talk about a city, you got a mayor, you got a city council, or alderman, as they like to call them in Chicago, a district attorney who's actually the ultimate enforcer of the laws, and you have chiefs of police. To me, that's the leadership. Rank and file is everybody underneath, because most of those positions that I just talked about are either all elected or they're appointed, i.e. like chiefs of police and stuff, unless they're like a sheriff and they are elected. And we're seeing this play out about, you get these, activist district attorneys who won't prosecute people for crimes, that they're more concerned about the criminal and what will happen to them over time than they are to the victims of the crime, whether it's a major corporation and thefts and destructions of its products or thefts out of the stores, or human beings through murder and sexual assault. Let's call it a rape, and assaults, and they're more worried about
abduction.
That. Oh my God, child abduction,
pedophiles. It's running rampant, and it's like they want to make it a norm, and they're trying to say that it's a sexual preference or a sexual, that it's okay as long as a child consents to it. What kind of people are these? I mean, this is just evil times.
Oh, they're just. I mean, they're evil. They're sick. They're there's a thing that we've got on our presentations of in our classes that in the corner it says criminals gone wild. And that's exactly what it is. They've gone wild. They've got full control. I mean, it's. I'll give you an example. Now we're going to, normally we're work from east to west. Today we're going to work west coast to east coast. On the west coast, you've got these criminals out there who they walk into the stores, they clear the shelves off, whole big groups of them, steal stuff. They try to keep the number under $1,000 because they know that they'll only get charged with a misdemeanor if they get charged at all by that ding-dong Gascon out there in L.A. and Bodine up in San Francisco. But now you've got the attacks extending out that, we have this supply chain thing, everybody's upset, this or that's not here, we're out of food. There's been some great reporting done on a lot of different channels about the Union Pacific Railroad's railway out of the intermodal yards. That's what you will know intermodal yards as, the Port of Los Angeles. Well, they load the trains. They got to bring them out on sidings, and then a set of locomotives pick them up and they bring them across the country, and you get to have it in your store. Well, these criminals are attacking those intermodal trains, breaking into the containers, which have all your stuff and all the stuff that you might want at some time, or the stuff that's used to make the product you might want someday, like the packaging for food and stuff of that nature, and cups at McDonald's. And the pictures that I saw, and I know this area well from when I did some work with the railroads and with the ocean containers, the intermodal transport guys in another career, and this is they're outside the secure boundary, by the way, and there's boxes of stuff and stuff laying on the ground, and they're actually had films of them arresting the bad guys, and they are laughing at the police and laughing at the camera crew going, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I got caught. Yeah, this is, this will get charged, but it'll get plea bargained down because of the district attorney to misdemeanor or petty trespass, and I'll be out in the street this afternoon. And it's oh, my God, this is their mentality, folks. They can do millions of dollars of damage, disrupt the supply chain, and they're not going to get prosecuted for anything. And they're going to be right back out in the street, and they're going to be repeat criminals. That's the thing. These are repeat criminals. Because
they do not fear the justice system. They do not fear punishment. They have no fear of this anymore. And if you go back in the good old days when criminals feared being punished, you didn't have this high crime rate because, even Biden come out and he said, yeah, even gun laws can't stop criminals from getting these guns off the streets. Well, how are these guns getting to the streets illegally? They're coming across that border.
Well, they're coming across the border. You've got so much theft. I get reports from the ATF because I'm a federally licensed firearms dealer. The number of break-ins that are happening at gun shops, gun stores. And, oh, by the way, guess what else is out there in those containers moving by railroad? Guns. They're moving out there. How do you think all those guns get in from the Philippines and stuff that are being legally transported to us, the retailers? Yeah, they're coming by train and by truck. So it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And Lee said they're not fearful of prosecution. Let me tell you that there's two fundamental fears that this is your criminal bad guy, not your jihadist. But your criminal bad guy, they are fearful of pain and they're fearful of incarceration. It used to be we did things to elevate those two primary fears. You may have heard us talk about it in the show before when we called it FUD. We used fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They fear they're going to get what's going to happen to them. They're uncertain their plan's going to execute, and they doubt the outcome will be what they want it to be. Right now, they don't care. They got nothing to fear. They may have a little pain, but they got no fear of incarceration, so they'll do whatever in the hell they want to do. All right, it's coming up on that time for a break. We've been rambling here. We're going to take our first break, and we'll be right back here in just a couple of minutes. All right, we're back from break.
Yeah, so, let's talk about this. Why has there been, the report just came out, 5.2 million new gun owners. This was just the report that came out a couple of weeks ago. And the last year here, there's 5.2 new million gun owners. Why? Because of these crime spikes. Because of these. 2021, we had the highest homicide rate ever in the history of the United States, the highest crime for homicide alone.
And it's up already this monthly from last year.
Yeah, and see, people do not trust that they're going to be protected by their police because not the police's fault, but the police are their hands are tied.
They're defunded. We've cut. Here's the interesting thing. Yeah, we've cut the number of law enforcement out there in the street, and either one by defunding, and all of a sudden now we get to refund them. But instead of refunding, here's the way we screw with the cops now: is they got to get the jab or you get fired. So we got two ways we can mess with the police department to get attain our ultimate goals. Is if we'll give them back the money, and now they're trying to hire people back. And why would any young and I compliment any young person that's out there that's going through a criminal justice program to become a police officer, because, boy, I tell you what, you're going to step into a real mess, and it's going to take courage. It's going to take, every bit of fortitude that you've got, and I salute you and support you 100%. But, they're going to try to draw these young people in and bring, veteran cops back. Why would they go back to the way that they have been treated by the elected officials? Because, oh, by the way, we always carry on our government as we the people. So I guess that's what we wanted, was to defund the police and make them feel like second-class citizens. Not saying that they are without sin, because we know that they are. We've seen that over the last 2 years. But I'm sorry. It's like, why? I mean, we've cut the number of cops out there, and then you got the cops out there who are working their tails off, who do make an arrest, and then there's that district attorney who will not charge, or they plea bargain down the charges. It's so soft. It's like, well, why in the hell did I put my life at risk? Why the hell did I spend the time away from my family for this guy or gal, district attorney, to take this criminal who committed a heinous act against another human being and plea it down and put him back out in the street because they're more concerned about the criminal than they are the victim? Case in point, a transvestite claims he's a transsexual now in California, attacked and raped a young child. And Gascon did not want to incarcerate him, put him on probation for a couple years because he was concerned that he would be victimized in the jail. My God, what about that young child? Even Gascon's deputies and assistant district attorneys are going to quit. They got a second recall out for this bozo, are going to quit because of the lightness of the sentencing. It's like, oh my God, give me a break. And now we got it playing out in New York City, too, with that new bozo up there. And their new mayor, who everybody had high hopes in, is underwhelming me right now. He better get his collective butt in a saddle, too, because after that young woman got shoved in front of the subway train, and he makes the statement, well, there's a perception that it's not safe in the subway tunnels. I used to ride those subways when Giuliani was the, mayor up there. They were safe. Now, I wouldn't ride the subway. Hell, I'm not even going to go to New York right now.
You see any of these states that are led by these people with D's after their name, they make excuses why this crime rate's up. They're more concerned.
Lee, I would take a different perspective. It isn't even a D. They could have a D or an R, but if they got that big P on their chest, progressive, that's the one I'd watch out for, because I'm sorry, we have a few of those. We call them rhinos.
Yep.
And they're out there, and don't be fooled by the letter behind their name. Look at the letter that's in their heart. That's the key to me.
Yeah, they are. But again, they're making excuses for this crime rate instead of trying to stop the crime rate. I mean, even up in New York, they're more concerned about people showing a vaccination card or wearing a mask to eat food than they are some poor lady who gets shoved in front of a subway train. I mean, this is what we're dealing with right now. This is the times that we're in. I mean, when you got I think it was for 2021, a 38% increase in homicides from the previous year, that right there should tell you we have something very bad going on.
And crimes against citizens, what we call violent crimes, up 62.5%. 62.5%.
That's crazy.
And your grand larceny stuff,
68%
68% across the country. It's like, holy crap, folks. You're fighting inflation. Now you got crime going against you. That's going to drive your you're going to feel this pain. It's called insurance rates. Mm-hmm. And, you're going to see other, impacts of things happening. And it's not going to be limited to the big cities. Everybody says, it's happening in the big cities. It's not going to happen to me. It's moving out into the rural communities. It's happening out there because, they're going to look for new, hunting areas when they go out there on the stalk. And it's absolutely nuts. Yeah. It's nuts. And again, it's part of the broader playbook of how do you bring down a government. It's, you take away its faith and confidence in law enforcement and the criminal justice system.
That's right.
It's like, hey,
eventually it's going to be you defending yourself and your families. That's why I always tell you at the end of the show, watch your family six, because we're in that time right now when sex abuse is up 43%. That means 43% higher people are getting raped for sex abuse.
That is of the reported ones, because how many times is the victim not report because they're embarrassed or feel they did something? That's BS. It needs to be reported. It needs to be prosecuted. And I'm sorry, they won't damn well prosecute it.
No. I mean, now arson was kind of a give me. I think it was up like 67%, but that's when they were burning and looting. So, I mean, that kind of contributes.
Well, that's only if they charge them. But remember, Lee, they got to arrest them and they got to charge them. But, Kamala Harris, she was out there banging the gong for additional money to bail these people out from their burning, looting, and everything else. And speaking of people like that, and I'm going to, pick on Pocahontas. Most of you might know her as Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
Your Senator Warren is out there, oh, the evil, the badness of these corporations. But, those trains I mentioned, those aren't products that have gone into your pocket. That is money and expense of those corporations, and they're paying that expense. They're getting hammered for that stuff. So I'm sorry. She hasn't got a clue when she's, attacking those corporations. And speaking of criminals and corporations, boy, I'm on a roll now. Watch out, folks.
Yep.
Well, actually, tell you what, we're going to take a break because I want to come back and cover this one in just a second. All right, we're back from that break. Now, where I was going is when those criminals, these corporations, I want you all to pay very close attention to Facebook and Google's parent company, Alpha, and a set of communications from Mark Zuckerberg and the president of Alphabet that owns Google about price fixing. These are our social warriors out there that are talking about everything should be equal. Everybody should have a fair chance. We should have a level playing field that everybody can sit around and we can all sing Kumbaya. But unless it involves how they're making money and how they can control the marketplace and they can do price fixing, which, oh yes, folks, by the way, is a criminal charge under the Sherman Antitrust Act. And they've got emails on them. So, they're criminals. If Elizabeth Warren wants to focus on somebody, you go focus on your little friends out there at Google and Facebook and Twitter. I know why Jack Dorsey got out of town. He probably got himself out of town from Twitter and went to a foreign country so he can't be extradited for the criminal acts that he committed in regards to turning people's accounts off. But that's a different discussion. We got to worry about what's going on in our streets.
And we got to take care of each other. And there's a group out there on TikTok because TikTok has become, I guess, like a candy store for pedophiles.
Well, it's ran by the Chinese, so It doesn't surprise me.
But there's a group out there on TikTok stalking these pedophiles, and they're actually pulling them out and posting their profiles so people can see that's what they are doing. And they're actually, I guess you kind of say they're taking some of it in their own hands. They'll lure them out into public and film them, saying, you are here to meet a 13-year-old child. You got to be careful if you're going to do that, people, please. Because, the guy could have a gun. Maybe he's there to kidnap, rape, and kill that child.
Or you might have been consuming the time of an actual law enforcement organization that's actually doing the same thing. And given that depending upon where you're at, they could claim that you violated their civil rights and you get one of these activist DAs or activist U.S. attorneys or assistant U.S. attorneys, and you might find yourself up into Heap Creek really quick. I'd be real cautious of that activity.
It's honorable what you all are doing. Honorable, but be very careful when you start doing that. Because, again, you can get yourself in hot water, get yourself killed. If you know that it's going, maybe contact the law enforcement officer.
There you go. There you go.
We got a child. We're going to meet a pedophile. He's agreed to meet a 13-year-old girl, boy, and we got him coming. Can you send an officer to witness this? We got it all on camera. They had text messages from him. So you got all the evidence. You did all the lead work. All you need is somebody with a badge who can legally put him in handcuffs.
But you have to understand evidence and change the custody lead. This is where it becomes, what you're doing is providing them a lead and a solid lead. Because I actually spent some time with some detectives in the Crimes Against Children unit of a police department. And I'll tell you what, the stuff that they see that goes through is, I don't know how they do it, but that's another group I compliment. Those people, it just, what they have to go through and what they see is, enough to chill the heart of the bravest of us. That's all I can say. It just was unbelievable. But get the stuff to them. They know how to deal with it. And there's actually, I got a little known fact. There is a billionaire entrepreneur up in Canada who has computer technology that he provides free to law enforcement in North America to go after these bastards and to go after the child traffickers at his expense. A little known fact. That's why in what they've got available is unbelievable to help them with that pursuit. So, you find them, you've lured them out with TikTok. Get the stuff to law enforcement. Just make sure there's not an activist DA behind him that says, well, we got to protect that person.
I know. That's sad. That is sad. I mean,
it's criminal.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a little cranked up this morning, folks, but.
Well, this is a touchy situation, and it's going on across our states. I mean, it's like Buddy said, it's no longer just in San Francisco, New York, places like that. It's across America where it's going on.
Dan, we got to watch. I mean, here's another one. We've talked about this in the show. Carjackings. Carjackings are up 67% across the country. Some places that's up 110%. For God's sakes, drive with your car doors locked. Don't roll down the window to talk to somebody who's trying to pull on your car door window. And if they got a gun, drive the hell away. Don't get out of the car and give them the car or open the door. Drive with your car doors locked. We can no longer be so myopic that it's the kumbaya world of the I won't even tell you the 1960s were that safe. But, you go back to into the 1970s. And you gotta be safe. And I'll be honest with you, we are a day after Dr. King's birthday, where he wanted all people to be judged on their character, not to be judged by their race, not to be judged by their theological beliefs. And we have seen an erosion of that integration that he looked for to segregation. That I think creates some of this crime. One, if you're a certain color, you got to feel like you're a victim. If you're another color, you got to feel like you're an oppressor. And that's leading to more and more of the crime that's taking place. Dr. King wanted a different world where a person was judged by their character, not by the color of their skin, which we were headed that way. But I don't know what the frick has happened here in the last, I'll tell you what, the last 2 years, it seems like it's gone batshit crazy. With 1619, CRT, some of these activist DAs, some of these bozos, I'm going to call them. And, oh, by the way, if you're listening, Elon Omar, I'm talking to you, you anti-Semitic individual who sits there and makes comments about the Jewish community that generates hatred, drives an individual to get on an airplane, not across the border, get on an airplane, fly from England on a tourist visa, find a gun on the street, which isn't that hard, or there's a network supporting these people. I mean, Mr. President, I'm sorry, he got a gun on the street. No, he may have already had a support network over here of others that are the same thinking and the same mindset that got it for him, gets to Texas, takes over a Jewish synagogue during the Sabbath, and demands the release of a terrorist, Ms. Al-Qaeda, who was, out to kill American troops in Afghanistan. But we got Congress people up there who are promoting anti-Semitism, that's promoting hatred. And you can't say they're a Nazi or a fascist. No, hell, we know they're a fascist because a lot of the stuff that's going on, segregation, all that type of stuff, that is all about fascism.
But what they're doing right now, they're waking up. Even a lot of our brothers of color, they're waking up to this now because they see, and I don't call him Mr. President, I call him Mr. Biden. Because he's not a president. He's not. He's not led this country. He's not out for defending this country. He's
Lee,
not allowed.
You're nicer than I was. I said president, but, all I got to say is let's go, Brandon.
But, he even come out and he had the gall yesterday during his little speech to say that George Floyd's death affected the world more than Dr. King's. I can't even believe he would put those two names in the same sentence, first of all. Dr. King preached from the Bible. He wanted brotherlyhood no matter what your color is. He just wanted equal for all. And then he's going to say that George Floyd was put on a higher pedestal than, even our brothers of color are coming out now screaming about that comment.
I had not heard that comment,
yes, sir,
Lee. And that, 1968, in the mid 60s, I followed Dr. King and what he talked about. I was a young person, in my teens, and what he was trying to accomplish. And, I was very much a conservative then, but I believed in what he was doing in the bus rides and the Selma Bridge. Mm-hmm. And when he was assassinated in 68, I felt the same grief I did in November of '63 when John Kennedy was shot.
But did you feel that grief for Floyd?
No, but for Let's Go Brandon to make that statement, I'm pissed.
He did. He made it. He said that man, that criminal cocaine head his death affected more people than Dr. King's did. Are you kidding me? Dr. King was on a righteous revolution, try to change and unite the world as not seeing each other as color, but as individuals in the content of our character. What did George Floyd do? He held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. He was high on cocaine, fentanyl, or whatever else he was.
He was the victim of a excessive force by a police officer, but it had an effect, but it was not the effect of what Martin Luther King did and the effect of his death and the loss of hope. I'm sorry, Lee, I'm going to take us to a break. I need a break for a minute. We're going to take a break. I'll be right back. All right, folks, we're back on that break. We had planned on only doing 24 minutes on this show today. We're a little bit more than that. We're at 26. We're going to go ahead, and this will be our last segment, and then we'll wrap things up. So bear with us for a little bit more. But go ahead, Lee.
But to compare those two men, one's not even a man. One's a POS. But to compare, to even put their names, again, I'm like Buddy. I follow Dr. I loved his teachings. I believe in unity because I was in the Corps. We seen one color, and that was green. We didn't see the color of our skins. We knew that when we were in a firefight, I didn't care what color that man was next to me. All I cared about was he could cover my six. That's all I cared about. And that's what he was teaching, but in a biblical way. So to confer, but for this idiot to even come out and put those two, and he got a couple of claps, but you seen the expressions on Google it, buddy. I mean, you can Google it.
I probably will.
And you'll watch it. Like some people are like, should I really be clapping right now? Because I understand what this idiot just said.
Yeah, George Floyd's death had a profound impact on a lot of people. It did raise awareness of excessive force. Yes. And I don't care if it's law enforcement, security officers, military personnel. Yes, it does occur. It raised awareness. But the impact that his death had on the world versus the loss of Martin Luther King was tremendously different. And, I listened to his rant in Georgia about voters' rights. I mean, you got to really read this voters' right bill, folks. There's a small piece in there about voters' rights, but it doesn't address anything. It's more about who gets to count the votes than who gets to vote. And guess what? Georgia is a lot more, and by the way, if they implemented that here in Colorado, it would actually reduce the access to the polls that we have here in Colorado, which we have a very controlled, very open voting stance. But you know what? Georgia's and Colorado's are much more than that state of Delaware where, our Mr. Biden comes from, and he's never purported or pushed any of that. I mean, And
this is just how sneaky they are. They tried to hide it in under that NASA package shit, but, it's just right there. That's just how sneaky they're trying to be with your rights right now. They want, and even Chucky, I call her Chucky, that redheaded, is the White House spokesman.
Psaki.
Yeah, I call her Chucky, but she even come out and she made the statement, we are trying to take your liberties. It actually came out of her mouth that they want to take our liberties, and they do. I hope you understood this. They're no longer trying to hide it, people. They're no longer trying to hide it because they think they have the upper hand.
And with the crime increases, it creates fear in the public. And it makes you want to bunker in. They tried it with COVID, with the masking, and this restriction, that restriction. That's starting to now fall apart as we see COVID morph as all viruses do. And we've talked again about this in the show over time to where they become pretty – they still can all be deadly just based upon treatments because, we don't have a vaccine, folks. We have a therapeutic. It just reduces the impact if you do get it. You don't have a vaccine. There's nothing out there to protect you against it now. It's just like the flu. The flu vaccine reduces if you have it. We don't have any type of thing for the cold except for therapeutics, and that's what we've got. But it's milding out because of the changes that are happening in the normal morphing of its life cycle. It never will die. They will always morph. They will always stay alive. It's just like, any other type of virus. And over the course of time, it becomes less aggressive from the standpoint of loss of life. Might be very aggressive from the standpoint of how it is communicated, communicable disease study, but it's not doesn't have the mortality rate, and they're losing that control. That's why the other criminal, Dr. Fauci, who made $2 million last year, by the way, while we all suffered with lockdowns and everything else, with his private portfolio of $10 million, and he's the highest paid at 400. I think they said 27 million or 27,000. I correct 427 in his income every year, highest paid federal employee. That he's losing his control. That's why he's blowing his top with Congress people, with news broadcasters, with other doctors and epidemiologists, and with virologists that know this stuff, and blowing up. They're wrong. They're lying. They're questioning the science. I am science. I don't know who died and appointed him the god of science on Mount Olympus out there called, the hill in D.C., but it's like, give me a break.
That's why I have fell in love with that senator from Louisiana, Kennedy. He is eating them up, and the stuff that comes out of his mouth, I'm just like, you go, boy.
Well, that's just like Rand Paul. I'm glad to see that Rand Paul's staying aggressive. I'm glad to see that Jim Jordan does what he does, and I am deeply proud of that a person by the name of Manchin sits in a senator seat, even though he has a D behind his name. The man is a moderate. He has got a sense of what's right and what's wrong to get to the bottom of the question. He always has. And that's what's really pissing off the progressives, the Ps, I don't care, whoever they are. And even, God bless Christian Cinema out of Arizona, because she says, no, the filibuster has a position. We're not going to take it away to commit, basically, I'm going to translate in my words what she said, commit crimes against the American people. That the filibuster is there to make sure that crimes against the American people do not happen by overhandedness and a dictatorship being created by it.
And before we wrap this show up, I wanted to throw out just some quick statistics to back up what Buddy said, that this crime wave is actually going across the United States. It's no longer just in your big cities where you think it's not going to happen here. And this is for all my brothers and sisters out there. Do you know right now the top 10 most dangerous cities? Number 10 is Indianapolis, Indiana. Memphis, Tennessee is number 4. And St. Louis, Missouri is number 1.
I'm not surprised by that. I lived there for 4 years. I'm not surprised.
I'm just saying 2 of those are southern states. It's not California. It's not New York. It's not Baltimore. Well, Baltimore's in there as one of the top 10. But still, it's across the United States now because there is no fear of prosecution or law enforcement. There's no fear. So now it's just going to take hold in every state.
You look at St. Louis. You look at St. Louis, all right? And you look at their state's attorney who's there. She is the one that prosecuted the 2 folks that tried to defend their home. Now, the wife should not have been pointing her little silver handgun at the protesters on the property, but she protested. But here's the beautiful fact, folks. Did you know that she was indicted by the federal government for perjury and for lying on applications for federal loans? It happened last week. I guess there is a real God.
Now, Missouri had 2 cities in the top 10.
Oh, let me guess, Kansas City? Kansas City?
I believe it was. Let me look.
St. Joe?
Kansas City.
Yeah, there you go, Kansas City, Missouri.
Number 5.
Yeah, you won't see Kansas City, Kansas on the list because they're pretty hard on crime. But you go over to the Missouri side, you cross over the bridge. Oh yeah, I'll tell you what. You get down around 10th and Grant down there. Oh yeah, it's a battle zone. It's I'll tell you what. I've been Kansas City and St. Louis. I know those places well. I'll tell you what. Yeah.
A lot of people from New York are saying, I'm moving to the southern states. Well, you might want to avoid Missouri.
Well, if you come to the southern states, I'd tell anybody from New York, don't bring your politics, don't bring your crime. Be prepared for a change of life. Florida
even holds up signs along the freeway. And don't bring your stuff down here. You're welcome, but don't bring your stuff. And there's signs in here in Alabama. Me and Heather, we go out to eat. And it says, we're more than welcome to show you hospitality and accept your money, but leave your political views outside.
All right, Lee.
Because they are.
We've been at this for 35 minutes. I'm calling it.
Okay.
I think we've told the folks enough. We're already, let me see, we're going to 11 minutes over what I planned on us to be on. But
sometimes you just get on a roll.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go take myself a little bit of Valium, have a little bit more coffee. I got a course to instruct this afternoon to security teams for a hospital. Boy, are they in for an education. So tell you what, Lee, as always, take us into our closing, please, sir.
As from you all heard about this show, with the crime rate going, watch your six, watch your family six, watch your friends six. And as always, as long as you have our Lord and Savior in your life, 6 feet ain't so far down.
And as I always tell you, freedom is not won on the battlefield, but in the school and the home. Know what your children are being taught. Know what they're being told. And you teach them about freedom. And I'm going to give you something else. You need to educate yourself on freedom and who is being elected and who is being appointed to offices, as they affect all of our lives everywhere. So until next week, from us here at Don't Be a Victim, at Tango Firearms Training in Alabama, and Tall Guns in Colorado, you all have a wonderful week, and we look forward to talking to you next week.